boyish exploits, birds' nestings on the crags. Biddy said this was a splendid beginning, if I had the sense to follow it up. "And you?" I went on to Mrs. East. "What do you feel is going to happen to you in the land of Khem?" "Oh, I don't know," she said. "I wish I did. And afraid isn't exactly the word. I just know that something will happen. I wonder if history does repeat itself. I should hate to be bitten by an asp." "Asps are out of fashion," I comforted her. "I doubt if you could find one in all of Egypt, though I remember my Egyptian nurse used to say there were cobras in the desert in summer. Anyhow, we'll all be away before summer." "I suppose so," she agreed. "Yet who knows what will become of any of us? Madame Rechid Bey will be staying, of course. I don't know whether to be sorry for her or not. The Bey's good looking. He has brown eyes, and is as white as you or I. Probably it's true that she's been too seasick to leave her room for the last 10 days, though Monny and Mrs. Jones thinks she's shut up because men stared, and because Mr. Sheridan talked to her. As for me, there's always that question asking itself in my mind, what is going to happen? And I hear it twice as loud as before in sight of Alexandria. Rakoti, we Lagade used to call the city. As she spoke, the long, oriental eyes glanced at me sidewise, but my trustworthy Celtic features showed a grave, intelligent interest in her statements. "It must be," she went on, encouraged, "that I'm the reincarnation of Cleopatra. Otherwise, how could I have the sensation of remembering everything? There's no other way to account for it. And you know my modern name, Clara, does begin with C. Saïda must be right. She's told lots of women the most extraordinary things. You really ought to consult her, Lord Ernest, if you ever go to New York." I did not say, as Neil Sheridan might, that a frothy course of Egyptian historical novels would account for anything. I simply looked as diplomatic training can teach anyone to look. Evidently it was the right look in the right place, for Cleopatra continued more courageously, recalling the great pharaohs of white marble which used to be one of the world's wonders in her day, the museum and the marvellous library which took fire while Julius Caesar burned the fleet, near by in the harbour. "Think of the philosophers who deserted the College of Heliopolis for Alexandria," she said. "Antony was more of a soldier than a student, but even he grieved for the library. You know he tried to console Cleopatra by making her a present of 200,000 manuscripts from the library of the King of Pergamus. It was a generous thought, like Antony." "Does the harbour look changed?" I hastened to inquire. "Not from a distance, though landing may be a shock. They tell me it's all so Italian now. It was Greek in old days. I've read that there isn't a stone left of the lovely palace on the Lochias Point, except the foundations they found in the 70s. But I must go and see what's left of the baths, even though there's only a bit of mosaic and the remains of a room. Monny's anxious to get on to Cairo, but we shall come back to Alexandria later. Lord Ernest, when I shut my eyes I really do seem to picture the Mareotic Lake, and the buildings that made Alexandria the glory of the world. Do you remember what Strabo said about Deinchares, the architect who laid out the plan of the city in the shape of a Macedonian mantle to please Alexander? "I'm not as well up in history as you are," I said, "though I've studied a bit, because I was born in Egypt. Poor Alexander didn't live long in his fine city, did he? I wonder what he'd think of it now. And I wonder if his palace was handsomer than the Khedive's. That huge white building with pillars and domes. I seem to remember—" "What? You remember too? You ought to consult Saïda." "I didn't mean exactly what you mean," I explained humbly. "Still, why shouldn't I have lived in Egypt long ago? The learned ones say you're always drawn back where you've been in other states of existence." "That's true, I'm sure." "Well then, why shouldn't I have the same sort of right to Egypt you have, if you were Cleopatra? I believe you must have been, because you look as she ought to have looked, you know. Why shouldn't I have been a friend of Mark Antony, coming from Rome to give him good advice and trying to persuade—" "Oh, not that he ought to give me up. No, indeed, to urge him to leave the island where he hid even from you. Didn't they call it Timonium? Why couldn't Antony play his cards so as to keep Cleopatra and the world too? She'd have liked him better, wouldn't she? My friend Antoun Anthony Fenton—" I stopped short, for the less said about Fenton the better, at present. But Cleopatra caught me up. "What? Have you really a friend, Antony? Where does he live, and what's he like?" I hesitated, and glancing round for inspiration, in other words, for some harmless, necessary fib, I saw that Brigit and Monny had arrived on the scene. They had been pacing the deck arm in arm, and now, arrested by Mrs. East's question, they hovered near, awaiting my answer with vague curiosity. A twinkle in Biddy's eyes, which I caught, rattled me completely. I missed all the easiest fibs and could catch hold of nothing but the bare truth. There are moments like that when, do what you will, you must be truthful or silent, and silence fires suspicion. "What is he?" I echoed feebly. "Oh, Captain Fenton. He's in the Gyppy Army stationed up at Khartoum, hundreds of miles beyond where Cook's boats go. You wouldn't be interested in Antony, because he spells his name with an H, and he's dark and thin, not a bit like your Antony, who was a big, stout fellow, I've always heard, and fair." "Big, but not stout," Cleopatra corrected me. "And, if he's incarnated again, he may be dark for a change. As for the H, that's not important. I wonder if we shall meet your Anthony. We think of going to Khartoum, don't we, Monny?" "Yes," the girl said shortly. She was always rather short in her manner, at that time when, in her opinion, her aunt was being silly. I gathered from a vexed flash in the grey eyes that there had never been any hint of an impending Antony. "Is your friend in Khartoum now?" Biddy ventured, in her creamiest voice. The twinkle was carefully turned off like the light of a dark lantern, but I knew well that Mrs. Jones was recalling a certain conversation, in which I had refused to satisfy her curiosity. Brigit's quick, Irish mind has a way of matching mental jigsaw puzzles, even when vital bits appear to be missing, and if she could make a cat's paw of Cleopatra, the witch would not be above doing it. I bore her no grudge. Who could bear soft-eyed, laughing, yet tragic Biddy a grudge? But I wished that she and Monny were at the other end of the deck. Really, I don't know where my friend is just now," I answered, with more or less foundation of truth. "I wonder if I didn't read in the papers about a Captain Fenton who took advantage of leave he'd got, to make a rush for the Balkans, and see the fighting from the lines of the Allies?" Biddy murmured, with dreadful intelligence. "Can he be your Captain Fenton? I fancy he'd been stationed in the Sudan, and he was officially supposed to have gone home to spend his leave in England. Anyhow, there was a row of some sort after he and another man dropped down onto the Turks out of a Greek aeroplane. Or was it a Serbian one? Anyhow, I know he oughtn't to have been in it, and Paterfamilias and Patriot wrote letters to the Times about British officers who don't mind their own business. Why, I saw the papers on board this ship. They were old ones. Papers on ships always are. But I think they came on at Algiers or somewhere." "Probably somewhere," I witheringly replied. "I didn't come on at Algiers, so I don't know anything about it." "Diplomatists never do know anything official, do they, Duffer, dear?" smiled Biddy. "I'll wager your friend is interesting, even if he does spell himself with an H, and weighs 2 stone less than his namesake from Rome. Mrs. East believes in reincarnation, and I'm not sure I don't, though Monny's so young she doesn't believe in anything. Just suppose your friend is a reincarnation of Antony, without an H. And suppose, too, by some strange trick of fate he should meet you in Alexandria or Cairo. You'd introduce him to us, wouldn't you? It's the most unlikely thing in the world, and he'd be no good to you. He's a man's man. He thinks he doesn't like women." "Doesn't like women!" echoed Monny Gilder. "He must be a curmudgeon. Or has he been jilted?" "Rather not." Too impulsively I defended the absent. "Girls go mad about him. He has to keep them off with a stick. He's got other things to think of than girls, things he believes are more important, though of course he's mistaken. He'll find that out some day, when he has more time. So far he's been hunting other game, often in wild places. A book might be written on his adventures." "What kind of adventures? Tell us about them," said Biddy, "up to the Balkan one, which you deny having heard of." "You wouldn't care about his sort of adventures. There aren't any women in them," I said. "Women want love stories. It's only the heroines they care for, not the heroes, and I don't, somehow, see the right heroine for Fenton's story." I noticed an expression dawning on Cleopatra's face, as I thus bereft her of a possible Antony with an H. There was a softening of the long eyes, and the glimmer of a smile which said, "Am I Cleopatra for nothing?" Never had she looked handsomer. Never before had I thought of her as really dangerous. I'd been inclined to poke fun at the lady for her superstition and her cartouche, and Cleopatrahood in general. But suddenly I realized that her make-up was no more exaggerated than that of many a beauty of the stage and society, and that nowadays women who are, well, 40ish, can be formidable rivals for younger and simpler sisters. Not that I feared much for Antony from Cleopatra or any other female thing, for I'd come to consider him practically woman-proof. Still, I saw danger that the lady might make a dead set at him, if she got the chance, and all through my stupidity